Welcome to the Brad Link, your home for expert wedding planning advice. Today we're talking about a new trend that we've seen growing and growing, and it's all about micro weddings. So we're going to tell you a little bit about what they are, reasons you might want to have one, and then some extra special tips on how to have a great micro wedding. And so we've brought in our expert from Chapel in the Hollow, Chastity, to discuss everything with us. Hi, Chastity.
Hello.
Chastity not only is a venue owner, but she also specializes in photography at Chapel in the Hollow. So she's a jack of all trades, and Chapel in the Hollow is one of the best places to have a micro wedding. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about what's the difference between an elopement and a micro wedding.
So there are a few different schools of thought on that. I personally, when I think of elopements, I think of people running off to get married spontaneously. So last minute, they ditch all their friends and family, they run off somewhere to Vegas, to the Smoky Mountains, whatever. They don't care as much about the little details that are going on. They just want to go get married. Maybe they're going to the courthouse. Maybe they're coming to Chapel in the Hollow. We get a lot of elopements. And we take care of a lot of those details to make elopements a little bit easier for them. That's what I think the big thing with elopements is that it's quick and it's easy, and they're not wanting a lot of stress with it. With the micro weddings, they can also just be the couple, but they might include a few friends or family. Some people think that less than 10 people makes a micro wedding. Other people say that less than 30. I personally think that either way is equally valid. Like elopements, they sometimes happen much more quickly than the traditional wedding, within maybe a few months instead of years and years of planning. But the big difference, again, is in the details. Most couples that choose a micro wedding, they want all the details of a regular wedding, like really good photography and a cake and flowers. And they want it to be personalized. They just don't want to have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do it for 150 people that they don't really care about coming to their wedding. So why spend all that money on them?
So if you want to have a great wedding, but you're on a budget, a micro wedding is a really good option.
Absolutely.
So I know you work with a lot of clients that do micro weddings. How many does your venue hold?
We have had up to 45 people on property before, but we really like it to stay under 20. It's just easier to manage. It seems less stressful for the couple, and things seem to flow more smoothly. If you get over 20 people, I highly recommend the coordination services, which we use through Custom Love Gifts.
We've worked with some clients with micro weddings, and something I like is they get everything they want out of a wedding, but they don't have to worry about the expense of $50 a plate times 100, like you said, or 150 people where they don't know all of them as well as maybe they want to, or as well as they want to if they have to pay for each person. What would you think are some of the other reasons that somebody might want to go small?
Well, cost obviously is the big thing. It's difficult for a lot of people to justify spending tens of thousands of dollars, which is what they say most people spend nowadays on a wedding.
Yeah, it's a down payment on a house.
Absolutely, or a brand new car. I mean, you can get a new car for $20,000, and who wants to spend a new car payment, on a wedding? Which there's nothing wrong if that's what you want to do and you have it to do, but it would be very difficult for me to justify doing that for myself. So
yeah,
it is a great way to get the experience without shelling out the big bucks.
Awesome.
Another benefit is that you can choose where you want to splurge, which you can also do with a large wedding. But going a little bit smaller, you can splurge more on those areas than you might be able to. And it's the whole quality versus quantity idea. Since you have less guests, you can make the details for those guests more special. So like you said, instead of doing a buffet for 200 people, you could do maybe a plated dinner for 10. Or instead of doing inexpensive $2 to $3 wedding favors, maybe you can do like a $20 wedding favor if you're doing it for 5 or 10 people versus 150 or 200.
Yeah. We recently had a bride that she did a micro wedding. I think there was like 24 people. She saved so much money that she paid for a giant cabin. And they all came down for a week, stayed in the giant cabin together. It was mostly family and a couple of friends.
Right.
Did the wedding, and they footed the bill for all of it because they saved so much money on their tiny wedding that they had a little bit left over.
Well, that's actually another one of our pros. If you've got a small guest list, you can make it to where you can spend more time with those guests that you're bringing. So you can have quality time with the people you really care about instead of spending a whole lot of time small talking with random cousins that you haven't seen in 15 years. You can really get one-on-one time with those super special people that you would want to spend time with anyway.
And you can make like a weekend of it or a week. In the case of that person, they stayed for a whole week.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
And if you can help them come, and I mean, it's fun for everybody.
Yeah, and nobody wants to drag around 100 people, so there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't do with a larger guest list. But
Absolutely.
with 20, it's easy. So what about things that they should think about if they're going to be doing a micro wedding?
One of the big things to think about is the fact that some of your family and friends might get a little upset with you because
Yeah.
they're not going to be included.
That's exactly why we didn't elope or have a micro wedding. People found out about it. I
Yep.
wanted to elope, and they found out about it and got upset.
We've had a few brides where that's happened, and they've changed their mind last minute, and that sucks because it's obviously not what the couple wants, and they're being pressured into it by other people. So if that happens, the best thing to do is to stay confident and try to explain that it's your wedding and it's what you want. And then if you're open to it, you can send them all the photos and maybe get some video or something while you're there so that they can feel like they were part of the experience.
Yeah, we had another client where, like, she just stood her ground, and so she's having a micro wedding, but then her parents, they hired a videographer, and her parents are throwing a party when they get back from their honeymoon or something. It's not like a full-blown wedding reception.
Right.
But they just really wanted to be able to invite some of their friends and larger number of family members, and they're going to watch the video. And the couple, I think, is going to, like, burst through the doors right after the video, like they'd be introduced to the reception at a normal wedding. They're going to be introduced to the party right after the video. So I thought that was a good way of, like, getting both things out of it. It appeased her parents, and she still got to do what she wanted.
We've actually had quite a few of our clients that do that as well. They'll come for the small wedding because that's the serious, not necessarily serious, but it's the moment that you want to be able to really focus on and remember. And then you can go party with whoever you want to afterward and everybody have a good time.
Yeah, and pressure's off.
Exactly. So another thing that you might consider with a micro wedding is, even though it's small, you still want to have a coordinator if you're having more than just a few people. And the big reason for that is they're going to help the flow of the day go smoothly. They'll let everybody know when and where to go during the ceremony, especially when there's just a few people there. You don't want to have your mom telling people where and when to go, and she's not going to be able to enjoy what's going on there. And they can help with decor and setup and cleanup, so you're not stressing out with the details, because there's still those things to consider. Even though it's a small wedding, it's still a wedding, not just a quickie elopement.
Yeah, I always say if you don't have a coordinator, you're going to work your own event.
Absolutely.
You just have to. Or you're going to force your photographer or somebody like that to work part of your event, and then they can't do what you hired them to do and take the photos.
And that has happened a few times. As the photographer and the venue owner there, sometimes I end up having to pull all three of those roles because Ian's doing the officiating at the time, and he obviously can't do anything. So then I'm like trying to tell people when and where to go and take the pictures at the same time, and it just makes it a little awkward. So also something to consider would be to focus on your must-haves first, as with the larger weddings. Make sure, for instance, most of our brides, their big thing is photos. That's their most important thing. So allocate the majority of your budget to that. Get your photographer nailed down, regardless of where you're going, and then all of the other little details can fall into place after that. So maybe you get a smaller cake, or you do cupcakes or something instead of something crazy and wild looking. Or maybe you just, if you're going just the two of you, it's still, you have enough money to do everything you want because you're not doing all that extra on your other guests. Yeah.
I think that's great advice, because if you put stuff in order of what you care about, if you run out of money, then it's the stuff that you cared about the least anyway.
Exactly. And there's certain things that end up falling off there if you have no guests or just a few guests. Like, for instance, the favors. You wouldn't have to deal with that as much as you would if you had a lot of people to worry about. And the last thing to think about when you're planning a micro wedding is that it's still a good idea to create a registry.
Oh, I didn't even think of that, because they might assume, well, if people didn't get invited or there's not as many people that came, we're not even going to do it.
Right. So just because you've decided on an intimate ceremony doesn't mean that your family and work friends, people that might not have come anyway, wouldn't want to help get you started, on your new journey in life, and get you your toaster or whatever you decide to sign up for that you may not have already.
Yeah, we did a podcast about how to do a registry, just because like when I got married, I didn't do my registry well, I guess. I didn't know that I didn't know there was certain tricks to it. And so, like, my maid of honor got me a toilet paper roll holder because she was like, there was literally nothing on your registry except for this. So here's your very special toilet paper roll holder, because that's all there was. But I didn't realize how many people used it. And I think if you do a micro wedding, you could still send out like an announcement instead of an invitation. And you don't actually want to put your registry information with the announcement, because some people, especially those in the South that are super traditional, will look at that like, oh, I got an invoice
Right.
with my announcement. But you can put your wedding website on there, and then that links to your registry.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're planning on having a reception, a lot of those people would want to bring you a gift, even though they weren't coming to the actual wedding, and that'll give them a place to go as well.
Awesome. That's great advice. So if somebody's interested in working with you at Chapel in the Hollow, or just looking at some of your photography and things that you all offer, where can they find you?
So we are at chapelinthehollow.com. We are also on Facebook at Chapel in the Hollow, Instagram at Chapel in the Hollow. It's very easy to find us. I recommend, if you're trying to get in touch, to use email, because we are out in the boonies and there's not great cell reception. So we have to set up appointments for phone calls, but we're still happy to talk to you and answer any questions you may have.
That sounds great. Well, thank you today. If you're interested in more expert wedding planning advice, you can follow us at The Bradley.